Hello, everybody. Today I have a special guest. This gentleman right here is definitely my brother. He is my brother in the spiritual order. He is an adept. He is very high up on the food chain, if you want to call it that. He's this beautiful soul that I love very much. And today we are going to actually be talking about that voodoo word that a lot of people are so afraid of, and that's voodoo, hoodoo, magic, all those things. That is absolutely the wrong thing to say. And we're going to get into a very, very controversial subject. Now, some of you guys who know me, I am doing a podcast with Pluto where we're doing spiritual enlightenment. I'm also doing a podcast with Mercurio, who's very much into, we're kind of talking about the walk of Christ. As you know, I am open to all things and close to nothing. And when I actually met my brother here, Papa Doc, he and I connected immediately, but I have a lot of questions because I've never met somebody who worked with hoodoo. So I was like, you got to tell me this. Is it this? Is it that? And I had so many questions, and he cleared all that up for me. And you know what? Once he did that, I said, you and I should do a show because a lot of people have a lot of misunderstandings. So anyway, you guys, welcome my lovely brother, Papa Doc. How are you doing today? Are you nervous?
No, hi sister. How you doing today?
Yeah, yeah. So how are you feeling? Are you nervous?
I'm feeling great today. It's a
Okay.
great day. It's a great day.
It's a great day. It is a great day. Well, we're here to talk about voodoo, hoodoo, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with asking you a question that a lot of people don't know. And I didn't know. What's the difference between voodoo and hoodoo?
Well, voodoo actually comes out of Haiti,
Mhm.
and hoodoo is actually a southern magic. So it's like a folk magic. So they sound remarkably alike, hoodoo and voodoo. There is a voodoo that is out of New Orleans, and it's different than Haiti. But basically, what it is that there are two magical systems that come from two different places. So hoodoo and voodoo, they sound very much alike, but it's just different origins. That's basically the difference.
And when you say southern, are you talking about like US, like Louisiana or something or
Southern U.S., you go like down south. There's always someone who has their own, that they have their folk magic. They were different, even when you deal with the slaves. They had their different recipes and their different potions and different things that they would do as well. As a matter of fact, some would even say that a lot of when you had the masters and their children, they would actually go to the eldest lady who actually had magical different remedies to heal. So it is a very rich tradition. Unfortunately, a lot of that tradition wasn't written down, or
Mhm.
we do have some recordings. But it was a very rich tradition. That is a hoodoo is a very rich tradition.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of points I want to cover. There's a lot, and I'm just kind of like I'm gonna kind of roll with it here and just start keep on asking questions. But feel free. Like if you feel like there's a point that you really need to drive home that you feel really passionate about, um, you
Be
know,
careful about that, Sarah. I'm a pastor. Remember.
All right, so that's another thing I totally forgot to say when I introduced you. You are, I think you have a saying, preacher by day, priest by night, or something to that effect, or hoodoo priest by night, conjurer. That's what it is. It's
Hmm.
preacher by day, conjurer by night,
All the
and
above.
yeah, yeah. So you are a metaphysical preacher,
That
and
is correct.
you actually have a congregation, you have a church,
Yes.
and you do that during the day. And then at night, you go out to the graveyards and you and you call up the spirits and you do some magic and all that good stuff. Yeah, I
Yes.
know I know all your little secrets. So so all right, let's get into this. a lot of people have, including me, it's one of the reasons why I asked a lot of questions. I have been completely opposed to that and scared of it for years because I thought it was evil. Can you explain that, or tell us why it's not evil, or kind of give us your point?
Well, at first, with voodoo, um, we have a saying in Haiti that Haiti is 90% Catholic and 100% voodoo.
Mhm.
So when you think of that, most people who are voodooists who practice voodoo do not consider themselves to actually be voodooists. They actually consider themselves to be Catholic. Also, if you look at Lester Crowley's his definition of what magic is, you would see that it's almost impossible to not do a magical act. This is going to be controversial, what I'm going to say, but
All right, go for it.
but even when you pray, you are actually committing a magical act. Because ultimately, whenever you want to affect change, then you are actually creating a magical act. Now, to go a little further into that rabbit hole, I've heard people, for example, say use the Bible to use black magic in the sense of this. I've heard people say, well, according to this particular scripture, you're going to hell. And I say to them, well, you just committed black magic, because ultimately, how can someone withstand that particular so-called curse of being, when you tell somebody that I know you're going to go to hell because this scripture says it. So a lot of times it's a matter of us understanding how the universe works and how we use those principles. So when we talk about voodoo being evil, then I would say to you that voodoo, it uses the same uh, principles that a religion does. And if voodoo did not use those principles, then it would not be a religion. It would not work. As a matter of fact, even within some of the voodoo rituals, we use Catholic type of rituals, for example, because ultimately, when the Catholicism, when it came to Haiti, they incorporated that within the magical system as well. So,
Okay, hold on. So I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Because I know that you're gonna talk about this for a while. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here, okay? Now I love you, so
yeah,
but I'm speaking for the public here, okay? You have a lot of Christian people who are going to say, yeah, but you are worshiping all these other deities, and it says in the Bible there should be no other gods before me. So how do you answer that question when you are,
well,
doing that?
okay. This now you're going to go a little deeper into the rabbit hole, but if you really
I
think
might as
about it,
well. I might as well.
Protestantism, different branches of Christianity started in Catholicism. And if you look at Catholicism, you see all the different saints and different things of that nature. So to go deeper in the rabbit hole, well, you have different deities on the one hand, and then you have different deities in Voodoo. If you look at Hinduism, you have a lot of deities there. So, and once again, I'll go back to the fact that principles are principles. So if you really look at the correspondence between the different religions, you see that they all have the same type of principles. So how I usually like to say it is that in the universe of cars, if you had a Toyota and if you had a Rolls Royce, then they have to kind of act the same. They got to have spark plugs. They got to have a steering wheel. They have to have an engine, because they don't have those things. They do not act within the universal principle of being an automobile. Well, the same thing with religions. No matter what religion you have, there are certain elements to a religion that make a religion work. You have to have faith, you have to have dedication, you have to have commitment, you have to have certain type of rituals, and so it's kind of unfair. I know a lot of Christians are going to say, but it's kind of unfair because you say, well, your very roots came out of Catholicism, where people do not feel any they don't feel any difference in going into a church and pray to all the different saints, Saint Peter, Saint Paul, whoever. So the only thing different is that if I do it using my particular rituals, then I'm considered evil, as opposed to a Catholic priest doing
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to counter that statement.
them.
Remember, I'm playing devil's advocate. And just remember, I love you.
Yes.
I'm
So,
just so okay. So but you can sit here and you're using Catholicism as your backup, okay? But what about Protestants? People that are Protestant do not believe that Catholicism is Christianity, by the way. Okay.
yes, but they both believe in Christ.
Yes, this is true, but they still don't believe they're Christians.
This
Okay.
is true.
And mainly because of the way that they go about their faith and how they make that connection with Christ. With Christianity, you come to a point in your life where you decide that you're going to dedicate your life to Christ, and you give your life to Christ. You say the salvation prayer, and you get saved and then baptized. Okay. So from their perspective, they don't do the deities, they don't do the saints, they don't even do the angels. Okay. So, and they back that up with no other gods before me, do not worship idols, and all the stuff that it says about magic and fortune tellers and all that kind of stuff. So how do you know, I had somebody ask me about that just the other day, because in our Facebook group we do every other week. Marco and I do the wine and tarot, and so I had somebody ask me about that. They said, it says in the Bible that you can't be a fortune teller, you know, and I said, and so I had a reaction to that I knew exactly how to respond to that. I kind of shut it down, but I want to know, like, how do you deal with people like that when they are coming from a very Protestant belief system where they're cherry picking the Bible and literally saying, well, it says this, so therefore, you know.
Okay. First thing I want to say is that we say deities, but we really don't have deities. The proper word for that is forces. And these forces are forces of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Ursula Down she's over the ocean. Oshun is over the river. So basically, what you're doing is, we would give it a face so that we can kind of relate to it, but it's very similar to shamanism. What I would say to those same people is, because we're so disconnected from the universe and the sources. As good Christians, we put our suits and ties on and go to church, but we have no problem dumping poison into the ocean. We have
Yeah.
no problem dumping poison into the rivers. Yet, if we were more nature-bound religions, we would have more respect for the elements, have more respect for those particular forces, see them as particular elements. And to take it even further, even Jesus, he was in relation to he spit in the mud. And he healed, which means herbology, in order to be able to do certain things. Also, to go into what you were saying about the Bible saying that it's evil, they say not to practice sorcery. Sorcery is evil.
Wait a second, isn't voodoo sorcery?
No, voodoo is not sorcery. Voodoo is.
Okay, then define it. Define the difference.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, what sorcery is actually when you go against the nature. For example, we know that if you go clockwise, that's the way the sun goes. So if you go counterclockwise, that means that you're going against nature. That means you're creating chaos. So ultimately what happens is that when you're practicing sorcery, it may work for a while, but eventually it's going to reverse back to its original source, because ultimately you're trying to do something that is against the will of nature. So, so sorcery, yes, sorcery is evil. When you look, for example, at Wicca, that's a good example of Wicca. Wicca uses pentagram. And if you really read Genesis, when God created the world, you will see that on the first day he created earth. He took all the creatures of earth, he put those in one place. The second day he did air, fire, water, spirit. The Ruach Elohim, he blew that upon the water, and then upon the earth, and everything became animated. So when you look at that and you see, it's by no coincidence, what God did was he created a huge pentagram. And then he ordered that pentagram in such a way so that he can be able to order his universe. In the magical traditions, what we believe is earth means manifestation, air means your thoughts, water, it means your emotions, fire means your passion, and air means your thoughts. Air means your thoughts. So, and then the spirit, and the spirit is actually where you put yourself back together and you actually be able to move from there. So, really, when you really think about it, what magicians do and what people who follow the Bible, I should say, what they do is really the same. They just don't know it because they have different ways of explaining it, but it's the same thing.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I had to go to a memorial service not too long ago, and I was in a Catholic church, which I haven't done in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed a lot of things that they were doing was very ritualistic. And, like they were doing, they do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they even know what that is.
They don't.
They don't realize that that's the Kabbalic cross. And basically, you're basically saying the kingdom of heaven is within me. You're literally like drawing that energy down into you and saying, bringing that kingdom inside of you. And it's kind of a short version of, a lot of different things that are actually Kabbalic traditions. Like, one of the things that's a Kabbalic tradition is you take a whole Hebrew word and you take the first letter off of that word and you create a tetrahedrogram. Is that what it's called? Tetrahedrogram.
Yes.
Yeah, you create a tetrahedrogram, and that particular word is used over and over again and empowered. Okay, well, so the Kabbalic cross is kind of that. It's kind of that same thing. It's like what you've done is you're using, points that has to do with the kingdom of heaven and drawing that energy down, and saying specific words that actually come from the tetrahedrogram. So it's really interesting. How, like, when I went into the Catholic Church, I saw some of those symbolisms happening. There was multiple things that I noticed, and I was like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. It was really interesting because most people do not know, and they're just kind of going through the motions. So I hear what you're saying about all of this, and I don't disagree with you, but I am playing devil's advocate right here.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
we got to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a reason why they call it mass.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they call it mass is because, because there was, at one point, there was an elite class who owned Bibles, and the masses did not. So they had to say the mass for the people. So a lot of what happened was that a lot of the Kabbalistic secrets were whittled down so that the masses could be able to get it. So what happened was the stories of the Bible were still there, but the science that was there, they did not understand the science.
Okay, you made a very valid point right there, and that is so Mercurio, right, Brother
Yes.
Mercurio, right? You know who he is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He and I do a podcast weekly, and that's one of the things that he says. And so it's basically what we're doing is we're kind of unveiling the secrets of the Bible, like some of the mysteries, and breaking it down. Like, here's what Jesus is talking about the water. Here's what the crucifixion means. This is what the wide gate versus the narrow gate. Like we're just beginning, but we're kind of like breaking down some of this stuff. But there's a lot of mysteries in there and a lot of hidden clues. And one of the things that my personal teacher that I had that passed away, he was a Taoist monk, and well, he was actually an abbot by the time he passed away, but one of the things he told me was the Bible is never meant for the public. It was a secret mystery book that people would spend a lifetime understanding and diving into because there was so much meaning behind all of the stuff that it was difficult to translate that into. And then here comes King James, and he tries to converted, and he does a really shitty job, by the way. And and so, no, seriously, because how do you convert Hebrew? Like, that is so almost impossible. Like,
Well,
and even Greek. Oh my God, it's like the conversion of that. It's like there's like 20 words that mean one word. Mean one word. In English, like you have the word love, and there's like 50 different words for love. And so he'll say agape love, but we'll translate it to love, and that could mean so many different things. And
well, I'm
got
sorry.
no, that's no. I think that there's so many mistranslations, like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
thing with sorcery or the fortune tellers, and they don't tell you all the words that were around it, and some of the words that were actually written in tetrahedrograms, so they don't even understand that. And so there's like, what do you mean? I've had
Well,
I've heard people like get really confused about
hmm.
like when they ended up realizing in Genesis it says, and the Elohim created
Hmm.
the heaven and earth. So a lot of people are like, well, Elohim is plural, so that means there was gods. And it's like, no, you're just missing the whole point here. The Elohim is, or Beni Elohim is actually what it says, is the Trinity. And it's but the Trinity has also been misperceived because there's mother, there's father,
Right,
and there's son, and that's
right.
the Trinity. Or in the mother is actually Holy Spirit. So it's like, and they get a lot of this stuff is like, and they all became one, obviously, and they came down as a collective and created this.
Well,
So
well, I just want to get this because so we can have it on film, edit on film, so that the one thing that most Christians and most magicians don't understand is that they're talking about the same principles on a different level. The way I like to always say it is this way: how do you see Jesus? Do you see him as Superman or do you see him as Batman? If you see Jesus as Superman, well, Jesus was that means he was an alien. Superman, he could kind of sympathize with human beings, but he really was from Krypton. So even though he might have took a bullet, but we also knew that he came from Krypton, so it wasn't going to hurt him anyway. Okay.
mm,
Now, and if Jesus was that way, then we have no way of ever being able to be like Jesus. But
mhm,
now let's say if Jesus was Batman, that
mhm,
means that we can be able to, if I go to ninja school, if I learn how to drive a car, if I hit the lottery for $1 billion and have the technology that Batman has, there's possibility that I could probably be at Batman.
mhm.
Now, I may not be at the best Batman like Batman himself, but I can try to be Batman. So what the question becomes is if God created a human being or a man to come down here on earth, then he wanted us to kick the tires to know how God was, because we already had a relationship with God with Moses, where he was up in the sky and he just parted the Red Sea. So now what the question becomes is that Jesus came so that we could be able to learn how to empower ourselves to be God.
Mm.
And that is the true power that most magicians understand, is that we're here to empower ourselves.
So how do you incorporate that into voodoo?
It's kind of interesting that you would say that too, because if you look at voodoo and you turn down the volume in the voodoo ceremony, voodoo doesn't look too much different than what you see in the Pentecostal church. I mean, if you see how, like, as the invocation, you see the whirling, you see the speaking of a different language and different tongues, and that's not by accident, because ultimately what happens is, however those forces are invoked, it is still those same energies. Even though they challenge it through Jesus, but you got to think about it. Even with that, the rhythmic aspect of Jesus with the drum, and that's an invocation. So when they invoke Jesus into the church, that's when, like the Pentecost, like when they say when during the Pentecost, when the wind came in and everything, that's what you're experiencing. Even within the Voodoo church, it's not that different. And I say Voodoo church because it's a temple. The thing that kind of concerns me is that people can give respect to everyone else's religions and different things, but they cannot give the respect that's due to the voodoo, even with hoodoo. Because ultimately, people always say, they disrespect by saying it's a magical system. It's not a magical system. It's a religious belief. It's an invocation of powers. The same way that when you were in the church and they play the piano, they play the drums, and eventually the call response to the minister or whatever, eventually what happens is the spirit comes forth.
Right.
So in the same way, if you talk about it within the voodoo, you actually have the song, which the priest he or she they will the song. The spirit comes down. It comes down into the homophore. That's what the voodoo church is called. A homophore, and then what happened? And the spirit comes down, and then the people are either possessed or the particular priest is written, as we call that, a horse. The priest become a horse. Now, in our tradition, when we talk about channeling, nobody says anything. You channel a particular energy, you channel a particular force. But in the voodoo, we say that the horse actually, the particular force takes on that particular entity, that particular body as the horse. Everyone gets upset about that. So,
Well, that's because those are scary forces.
well,
When people are channeling, they're usually channeling an angel, so that's the difference. But I get what you're saying, and I'm just I'm trying to conquer the questions that most people are going to be asking. Okay. So they're still going to be like, still don't get it, because there's some people, especially, and there's a larger community of Protestant Christians than there are Pentecostal and Catholic. Okay. So this is the area that is going to see this video and literally like be ready to hang me on a cross.
Let me tell you a story of how I became a metaphysical preacher as well as a voodoo priest, because it's a very interesting story.
Yeah, go for it. I want to hear it.
I was licensed and ordained at the age of 12 years old in the Pentecostal church.
Wait. 12? How do you get licensed and ordained at 12 years old? Don't you have to go through like 4 years of ministry school and stuff like that?
Well, what happened in my tradition, it was a Pentecostal tradition. So basically what happened was we had council of ministers set up, and they heard me preach, and they licensed and ordained me. Now, what happened was the bishop of the church at the time, he thought that when it was my time, when I got older, that no one would actually ordain me. So he said he's going to ordain me myself, or ordain me himself. So
why did he think nobody would ordain you?
Well, I think that was just his way of wanting to make sure that he did it himself without anyone doing it to take his credit. I really think that's the reason why. But he allowed me to grow up to be a child. So I didn't have all these big time responsibilities, but I was actually, with my little tiny voice, preaching at the age of 12. Now, when I first started preaching, sorry, I used to say when I was a young man, but I can't say it anymore because, at 12 years old, my little squeaky voice, I would go, when I was a young man, and people would laugh, but yeah, I started at the age of 12.
I would love to see a video of that.
So what I did from there, I went to Temple University. I went to Eastern Baptist Theological Seminary, because at that point I was set to become a pastor. Okay. So when I was at Temple University, what happened was I had an African teacher who told me, he says, so if you want to be a pastor, then you need to study Egyptology. So I said, Egyptology, what does that have to do with being a Christian in the Old Testament? So as he gave me books to read, I started realizing that there was really a lot of connections between the Old Testament and the Egyptian history. So at that particular time, I was already kind of like, I could never come back from that, So from there, I went back to my church where I was Pentecostal and everything. So what happened was my mom, she got sick. And I knew that it wasn't a regular sickness. There was some type of spiritual sickness that was going on. So
let me ask you a question about that. Why did you think it was a spiritual sickness versus a regular sickness?
Well, because there were certain different conditions, something that we call generation curses. There's different there's different evil eye that can be put on you, different things like that can be put on you. And what we believe is that actually it was a jealous sister in the church who actually gave us a piece of lace cake. And because she gave us that particular lace cake, my mom became spiritually ill. And at that particular time, my mentor, he had passed away. and I had to go searching to find someone who would be able to help my mother.
Wow.
Um, yes. So then we went from reader to reader to reader, and my first experience was with it was with a Orisha priest. He was into Palo as well. He sat down and he read he read our fortunes. He read different things from the cauldron that we had, and he started telling us different things. He started telling us about different people who had worked in our life. Someone in our own family had worked some magic on us. On my mom. My mom had crying spells, and basically what he told me was that literally, if I didn't get that work done, he said that my mom only had like about 3 months to live. And
Wow.
you can see where you see the dark circles under her eyes. You can see where she was having crying spells, and I just knew at that particular time that it wasn't something medical; it was something spiritual.
Okay.
So, to make a long story short, I left. So I was practicing Palo, Santeria, some of the other African-based religions. Then I went into the voodoo because I took a trip over to Haiti, and that's when I became initiated into the voodoo. So,
And wait, why did you become initiated?
well, because at that time, my mom was still having some issues. And at that time, we had enemies coming from everywhere. I mean, there was like, there's something called spiritual vampirism that was happening with us. And everywhere we go, people were vampiring off of us. And we did not know how to protect ourselves. So, I did take a trip to Haiti, and it was told to me that I needed to be initiated in order to be able to protect my family. So, excuse me. So, because of that, that's how I went on the trip of being initiated. That's why I'm not as harsh on Christians who see this as being evil, because ultimately, if I would have seen myself at 14, at the age that I am now, I probably would have killed myself. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, because I would have told myself at that time that you're going to hell and you practicing evil, you practicing black magic, whatever. Because what Christians say to me now is what I used to say when I saw that type of experience. If I saw that type of experience, that there are different things out there in the universe that I did not learn, even in the university. You know, when I got to one university, I realized the fact that they even teach Wicca within the university. So when I was 12 years old, I did not even know that they would teach Wicca in the university. So that was a whole new world for me, even in that aspect.
Wow.
What I would like to say is that for someone who's a Christian, I would say at least go and experience a voodoo ceremony, because it's one of the most beautiful ceremonies that you ever want to. Because basically what it is respecting nature. It's respecting the forces of nature. If you have an open mind and you will see different things that are very, very beautiful. And if someone's there to explain it to you, you realize there's a reason for everything we do. A lot of times what happens, outsiders come to the voodoo and they try to explain it, and the way they explain it with all this spooky, scary stuff. There's a reason for everything that we do, and it's based upon principles. Can I say this? There's a lot of people who would say things like, oh, you use roosters and you do this and whatever. I said, but listen, if you wanted to go and get something kosher, you would have to have the kosher rabbi would actually go and he would prepare that meat or whatever. Or if there's a sacrifice that had to be done back in those days, those sacrifices would have been done. So, there's a lot of cultural biose.
Okay, I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you a question, since you're really fluent in history. In the Bible days, they did sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, quite often in the Old Testament. So I'm curious. I've always been wondering about that. About the sacrifice. Were they sacrificing it and then eating it, or did they just sacrifice it and burn it? Do you know?
Well, sometimes both, because sometimes they sacrifice. Because basically, what they were doing is they would actually burn it, some of it, but they also consume some of that as well. So to kind of go forward with that, in Haiti, what we do is we actually we offer it up to that particular forest, but we eat too, because we don't waste the meat. So we're sharing with nature in that way.
Uh-huh.
So that's why I'm saying that that the very culture that the Old Testament was reared in. I mean, a lot of stuff is we still do that because still blood. Think about it. The blood of the sacrifice, basically what they did, they just took that blood and said, well, now Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice, so we don't have to do that anymore. So,
So what do you say to that?
huh?
What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, to each person's belief, they I believe in a certain aspect of it, but the blood is just a force. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we look at it from the aspect of magicians, we see it as not. It was not just Jesus' blood at that particular time. Because if you go back in particular time, you look at Osiris, you look at Isis, you look at what you saw that Osiris was actually he was sacrificed as well. So and so what you see the same myth consistently being told in different societies. So it's not that was that a coincidence? I don't think so. Basically, what it was showing an alchemical principle, it was showing an alchemical process, and then it kept on doing that consistently through different cultures. So and what Christians are going to say, because trust me, I know I went to seminary. So I know what it is. I have a joke. I went to cemetery. I mean seminary, but no. But but what they're saying is that well with Jesus, that was one particular time when they're supposed to do sacrifices is never again. I said, well, sometimes so forth, and sometimes not, because if there's a condition on a certain person that needs to be removed, well, obviously we won't kill that person, so that energy has to go somewhere. So it had to go into a particular animal, or so forth and so on. Just like in the Bible, where they say that they actually the evil spirits went into a pig. There's a lot of places in magic in the Bible where they use magic. There's a lot of places where, for example, there was I can't remember who it was. I think it was no. Let me see. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It was Isaac, I believe. And basically, what happened was he was Jacob, and what happened was the calves was coming out solid. And he had a deal with his father-in-law that each solid cow that Jethro would get, and every speckled cow he would get. So what he did, he took a divining rod. He actually created a spiral rod, and what he believed was if the cows would actually look at that rod, that they would come out speckled. And what happened? The cows came out speckled. Sounds like magic to me.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Now watch this. Let's go back to what we said. What the definition of magic is. Aleister Crowley said that magic is to affect a certain change. So what's going on here? Well, at that time, cattle, it affected their livelihood. So he wanted to affect his prosperity. So he actually did magic in order to be able to increase his prosperity.
Well,
So
didn't Jesus do magic?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, many times he was accused of being a white magician. Many
Oh,
times.
I know. He was definitely accused of sorcery or magic, or I mean, the church had a real problem with him and the stuff he did. Like, him healing people, like what he took a crippled and made him walk. And he took water and turned it into wine. There's a lot of things in there that he did.
I'm gonna be controversial about that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to say to you is that yeah, Jesus did those type of things, but what people are going to say what was allowable back at that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm saying to you, no, magic is magic. And then I asked the question: was Jesus the same yesterday, today, and ever and forevermore? So if he's that, then why is it that back at those particular times they could do magic and we can't do magic? So
well, I think the biggest misconception goes into the translation, because he said, "Follow me," and he said, "Believe in me." When he say these words, the translation gets really conscrewed, because basically what he's saying is, he goes, "Trust that what I'm telling you is right, and do as I do." And so basically, if that's the case, then if he's like healing the sick and turning water into wine and all kinds of other things, casting spirits out and, seeing people's, like, he could see their future. I mean, look at the woman at the well. I think she was a Sumerian, and and he said something about go ask your husband, and she said, I'm not married. And he goes, yeah, that's right. You've had 5 husbands. Like he was using clairvoyance, right? So so that's prophesying, or not the word prophesying. I'm sorry. That's fortune telling.
That's like that's even like, first of all, in the Bible says, don't you know that ye are gods? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing. So Jesus is sitting on the back of the boat, and the waves are crashing into the boat. And then, and Jesus is sitting back because it was a test. So what Jesus says, Jesus say anything. So they go, Master, do you care that we perish? So Jesus says, no, I don't want you to perish. He says, peace, be still.
Yeah, he's the master of all elements.
But the one thing more important that he did was, in this, he turned to them and he says, why couldn't you do that? Jesus would not have scolded them for something that he knew they could not do. What he understood was that he went through the alchemical process of himself so that his elements were in control, so he could speak outside of himself to those elements. But what he was telling them is that you should have your elements in control so you could be able to speak outside of yourself and create things as well. Right. And then Jesus said, he said, greater miracles than these shall ye be able to do. So I'm going to say something here. Where are the miracles?
Right. What about the time when he was actually walking on water, and then he tries to get his disciples to do it, and and they start doing it, but then all of a sudden they start getting nervous and they fell into the water because they let fear lead them. Right.
Metaphysical principles. That's what that word metaphysics, only thing that word means is beyond physics. Mm-hmm. That's really what it means. So when people ask the question all the time, so what is a metaphysical pastor? Basically what we do, we take the scriptures and we take it like Batman, so you can be able to use the scriptures. And by the way, it has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to do with self-empowerment, the science of better living. So, we have people, for example, who are Muslims. We have people who come to us who are different other faiths to understand the science of how to live life, understanding the universal principles. Because if you don't understand the universal principles, you could be a quote unquote good Christian and bust hell wide open. You really can.
Oh, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
Thank you, sister.
You're welcome, brother. I tell you what, when I was working on your videos, I'm sorry, but some of the stuff that you said made me laugh so hard. And I think the one thing that I love the most was that you can either pimp for God or you can hoe for the devil.
More of that is coming.
More, I sat there and that one has stuck with me so much. It's like, it made me laugh. I found myself cracking up through the whole thing because you are extremely dramatic and very animated. And when you get on your high horse, you really are preaching it, and
that's a part of my gift. Mm-hmm. Is because I say it in such a way that's either humorous or to shock you into a reality of understanding what I'm saying. Because I understand that when I'm standing up there and when I'm doing those videos, I'm going up against psychological warfare. Because people inside themselves, they're going through, when my pastor told me this or this and that and the other. So I know what I'm going up against. Most of the time when I say something, I know what the question is. I actually have a particular footage that I'm gonna send you. And you're gonna love that too. It's God's meant, but the devil's And what happens with that is that I go into and I say, this is not for the teetotaling Christian. It's for that young lady down there who's been called an MF for so many times she don't even know what her name is. The person who don't think that's so far in darkness that the light won't even find them. For the dude that's down there who's thinking his only option is to hustle the drugs, the pimps, whatever. I said, this is a message for you. I said, because you're the ones that need to hear this message, not the ones because the ones who think that they already have it. Trust me, they already made it in their mind. They already have it. Say you're the ones that's sitting out there that's being jailed and being whatever. You're not living life and you're not living it abundantly. So I'll bring that message to you, and they understand that. Either I'm a master pimp, I'm the devil's hoe. They understand that. And I mean, you can't make it. You cannot make it any more than that. They go, whoa.
I know. I honestly, some of the stuff you were saying was making me crack up so bad. You were
Well,
like,
you know what?
you're like, you're gonna go to a church, and all these rich people, they're not showing up in your church, But when you find out what church you go to, you need to make sure you go.
They won't. I say things in a way that's real, because I like to say things in a way that's approachable. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times what happens is that people, when they see things, they always think that when you come from outer space somewhere, you don't know my pain, you don't know where I'm coming from or whatever. And I tell them consistently, West Philadelphia, born and raised, he got the checks, I didn't. So I'm being real about that. I say, right. Listen, magicians come from a very real place. We come from a very real space, and ultimately, it's about empowerment. How you, the quality of life that you're living. You have people, for example, who they actually resent God, and they're going to church every Sunday, because in their mind they're thinking like, well, and I say this to be real. Why is it that the devil, he blesses somebody over here in the drug business, or the devil bless somebody over here that's doing prostitution, and he doesn't bless me the same way? And they're angry about that. I'm a good going. I go to church every Sunday. That's what the messed up thinking is in America, because that's the reason why people think that, well, I'm gonna go out and sell my drugs, then I'm gonna come back and pay my tithes in the church, because God don't bless like that. And that's messed up thinking. I mean, if God was the one that created everything in the universe, why do you think you can't go to God and get money? And if you really think about it, if you go out in the world and say you're going to be a gangster, you get more support in being a gangster to get money than if you go to church and you said, listen, God has given me a vision that in 3 years, I'm going to be a billionaire. You're going to have so many people in the church that's going to player hate on you, and they're going to kick that person out of the church because they don't. And you say, what? I thought you said you believe in God. God told me this. That's why you have a lot of people who started in church and they leave the church because the church said, well, you shouldn't be playing that, or you shouldn't be doing that. And ultimately said, well, if I can't do it for God, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do it for the devil. And then the devil's going to bless me. And then I'll just throw God some every now and then so that he'll bless me. And that's what the thinking and truthfully as it's told, that is the underlying thinking of why most people in America are broke. Because you think about it, you go to church and they're always telling you that there's something wrong with money. You got to do something wrong to get money. You got to steal money. You got to do all that to get money. And now all of a sudden, common sense tell you got to go out there and get money to work and to be able to feed your family. Well, those are two things what we call an alchemy. That's a spiritual divorce. That's not a chemical wedding. That's a chemical divorce. Because now the one part you're saying, well, I got to go out there to feed my family. But the other part you're going to say, but I know I shouldn't make too much money, because if I make too much money, I'm going to go to hell. So how do you, that's a misquote, by the way, but that's how people think. And because that's the way people think, that's the reason why people in America, they have so much problem with money. And that's the reason why a lot of people play ahead when people have money. Because they're thinking it, because, a lot of people who have money, who are the hustlers, they didn't hear all the misconceptions that was in the church.
Yeah.
So only thing they know, I'm going to say, and this is biblical.
Okay, tell me.
I'm going to tell you this. Jesus did not go to the synagogue to convert people. He went to the fishermen. And what he said was, listen, he said, I want you to follow me. And right then and there, they got it straight. He said, listen, Jesus, I follow you, but I need to eat. I need to be able to pull some fish up. Prove yourself to me. So what Jesus did was this. All night, they were casting their nets down on the left side of the boat, which means they was on the wrong side of their thinking. So Jesus said, now cast your nets on the right side of the boat. When they thought, visualized and saw the fish coming, they saw it, and they had more than enough fish. So then they said, well, now I'm going to make you fishermen of men. So only thing they said, well, listen, they talk about a sinner's prayer. That's why sinner's prayers work, because he doesn't know he's a sinner. If you're if for 30 years you sat in the church and they told you all the guilty stuff that you did wrong and all that kind of stuff, and you go before Jesus, you're like, well, I know you're not gonna hear this prayer, Jesus, because I did this, that, and the other. The sinner don't know that he was that he was a sinner.
That's really interesting you say that, because I've taught this manifesting course, and the people that are agnostic or never raised in religion or believe that there's a force but really doesn't know exactly how to identify it, so they don't really have any kind of like programming at all, then they start learning the basics and the principles of manifesting, and boom, like I had a woman, I've had several people turn into millionaires based on just following what I taught them. However, the people that do have the programming, they're the ones that have the hardest time with manifesting, and they can't ever seem to manifest large sums of money. And that's because they get into the wrong mindset, and it messes with them.
I call it a money rejection complex. And that's what happened. There's a story that was told about the village idiot. He got up one day and he started walking on water like crazy. So they went to the wisest men in the camp and they asked him, how can he do this? So they had the mathematician to figure out and say, this is impossible. So the other guy came up and he looked at him and he said, is there anything specific about his bones with like that? He says, no. So there's one wise sage, he says, you know why he can walk on water? Because he's an idiot. He doesn't know that he can't walk on water. A lot of times we out-psych ourselves out a lot of stuff because of all the misinformation that we've been told. That's why, for example, when I teach metaphysically, I teach actually what the Bible actually says, but not only from the standpoint of the Bible, but I also speak it from a magical principle so that you can be able to understand it and work it. Whether you are a Christian, you're a Buddhist, a Taoist, does not matter. You can understand the principle behind it. And if you work the principle, you will get the result.
Going back to the voodoo thing.
Uh-oh. I knew you were going to ask me that.
You made it very clear that you're really good with this metaphysical stuff. Okay. So you say you're working with more like elementals or, elemental spirits, basically, right? And that went the way that you kind of explained it.
Yeah, kind of. That's what we could call it, basically. And there's different other levels to that, but for the video, we'll say elementals.
Okay, well, what I don't know what else to call it. I don't really know how to explain it, but basically, you're saying it's not. We're not talking about beings or deities. Okay, so that's pretty much, because I thought with voodoo or hoodoo, whichever, that there were dark entities that were like if you conjure them and you tell them, I need you to go curse this person, they do it. If you conjure them and you tell them, go bless this person, they'll do it. It's sort of like they're really, or go do this or do that. It's sort of like you're kind of leading them to do these things. Isn't that dark magic?
Well, no, it's just what it is. Like we say, fire, you can use fire to do one or two things. You can use it to cook your food, or you can use it to burn down a village. So it's not necessarily what the element is, it's how you use that particular element. Yes, there are dark forces like there are light forces. I mean, the truth be told, why you got Jesus and you got God, you got Satan. So I'm not going to sit here and say you don't have those particular forces, but that's not the only force that you have. The misconception is always when you use voodoo to go to voodoo somebody. Why don't somebody say you go Christian somebody? They don't, you know what I'm saying? It's like this mysterious.
You to go Christian somebody.
Nobody ever says that. There's like I said again, there's a lot of elements there. There are different. Another thing about voodoo that people don't know is that if I wasn't a pastor, a metaphysical pastor, if I was an entertainer, I'd be great right now. Because as long as you're entertaining people, as long as they're on movies or like that, you hear people always talking about voodoo. Because then it's like it's entertainment and you're looking at a screen. But when you take those tools and say, well, can you use those same tools to empower your life? Now you're forcing people to actually empower their lives. Now it becomes dangerous. I always say this: that why is voodoo one of the most powerful magical systems in the world, or religions in the world? Because it works.
And that's probably why they're scared of it.
Because it works. But now, watch this. What they don't understand is that.
Yeah, but if you think about it, though, that's probably why they're scared of it.
But if you really think about it, the same principles that work that works with voodoo are the same principles you use in Christianity, because they all. Remember what I said about the automobile, whatever. Like it's the same. It's the same thing. But if you see a people who you have not been able to learn from, then quite naturally what you're going to do, you're going to start making up the gaps. And when you make up the gaps, because voodoo has been one of the most disrespected religions when it comes down to the movies, because they don't know what it is, so they start making up different things about different things, and then people are afraid of it. Which one of the things that happened with me, for example, is with different religious conferences and things like that, they will invite everyone to sit down at the conferences, but they won't invite voodooists to sit down at the conference. I said, we're a religion like your religion.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, I think the bottom line is that there's you can misuse magic anyway. Okay, anybody can do that. And it really comes down to the will of your soul, or the makeup of your soul, basically. I mean, if you're a bad person, you're going to be a bad person in Christianity. It's just, you're just using it as a cover. And you'll still go out and do the bad things. So, but you can be a bad voodooist, and you can be a good voodooist. And I don't even know if that's the word voodoo.
You know what? I'll accept that. I will accept that. A good voodoo. I'm gonna tell you something, and I'm gonna say this kind of like, I know a lot of people are going to get on me for saying this, but when it comes to backsliders, Christians have the worst backsliders ever. You think about it, they got a very bad success rate. You think about it, because everybody has been in church, but they're not in the church.
Yeah.
But as soon as somebody pick up, let's say, a Ouija board, or somebody mess with something they don't understand, that they're not a master of, and then the forces of nature begin to do certain things, now they get afraid and want to run back to the church.
They haven't been trained. They haven't been trained on how to work with that. Like you can't just go and dive into something and not knowing how to maintain it. It's like, think about it like fire, for example. You build a fire, let's say in the woods, for example. If you build a fire in the woods, you could catch the whole thing, the whole forest on fire. But if you know how to build the fire and contain it with sand and rocks and digging a hole and doing it the proper way, then you can roast marshmallows, cook weenies, barbecue, cook a whole meal on it, or keep yourself warm and keep yourself alive from the cold or something like that. So I think that you're making this is the point right here, is what you're saying. And this is, people misuse and abuse things without knowledge. And when they misuse and abuse things without the knowledge, then that's when everything goes, oh, well, blah, blah, blah,
Well, first of all, and I agree totally with what you're saying. Mm-hmm. The first thing is they believe that magic is a shortcut. They believe they can get it in 3 easy steps. Mm-hmm. And that's a misnomer. I mean, I don't want to put out, but there's a show that used to be on TV with the 3 witches. I'm not going to name the show, and and everything happened within a half an hour. But if you really think about it, how long did it take them to go to school to be able to get the audition, to be able to sit there for a half an hour and say that magic works in half an hour?
Well, if you think about it, though, in the very beginning of the show, when they were coming into the powers, she would go she'd just be talking and she'd be like this, and she'd accidentally freeze people. or she'd go like this and she'd throw some kind of thing across the room because she couldn't control it. She'd just move her hand and shit would start flying. They didn't have control over it because they hadn't mastered it yet. And
absolutely,
even the one that was a empath, she was walking around crying all the time because she had mastered that as a skill versus like she thought she had the worst skill. Like, you guys can move stuff around and freeze things, but all I do is sit around and cry, and she hadn't learned to master it. And really, that's the bottom line. People can misuse things. People can abuse things. They do the same thing with so many different things. Like, something miraculous can come out on the market, but somebody misuses it and they take it off the market, and that's it.
People misuse the Bible.
Yeah.
People misuse the Bible. I'm gonna tell you what. When I was a Christian, a lot of people gave Christianity a bad name. I didn't, because it's like, you like everything you can't beat people over the head with. Sometimes Christians are the less intolerable to different things. You would think they'll be more intolerable. They'll be more tolerable, but they're more intolerable. And so my whole thing, and I'm not saying, and I get the whole thing about the Great Commission and Jesus said go out there and preach and all that kind of stuff. But if someone does not agree with what you have, then and they respectfully decline you, then you don't jump all over them, whatever, because then what they're going to say is that's the reason why I'm not wanting you in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Because ultimately, we need to be able to coexist in the first place in that way. And what I really do believe is I am a bridge in that sense, because for the first time in history, we have had someone who's actually not only been a magician, who's actually been a worker in 5 magical sciences, a master in 5 magical sciences, but also as a preacher who's out there can be able to teach the principles. That's the first time we ever had that. Usually you would have...
Are you talking about you?
I think. So, because usually you would have the worker who you come to, and they'll do a reading for you, and they'll throw whatever they would do for you, and then they'll do work for you. So you'd have that part of it, but they weren't good speakers. Or you had on the other side, we had these great speakers who may have practiced in secret, but didn't teach anyone else. And trust me, I can say this because some of my best clients are pastors, so I can really tell you that. So what are we going to do? And that's the big thing about it in terms of the masses things. I had a pastor that came to me, okay, and I read her, and I said to her, wait a minute, aren't you initiated? I said, yeah, I'm initiated. So why don't you tell your people that you're initiated? She said, because I don't want to tell my people, because that's how I make my money. So ultimately what I'm saying to you is, and really when we think about America is not really religious. America is spiritual. Think about it. We all, if an older woman has a vision about fishes, the first thing we think is that in the family is somebody's going to be pregnant. What scripture is that? Or if you go and you cut your hair, you better go and burn your hair so nobody gets your hair. What scripture is that? Or or the whole thing, like, well, or you have a basket name. Now, what is a basket name? For example, in this country, most people, they would give you their first name, they'll give you their last name, but they'll give you the middle initial. Or what they would do, they'll give you the first initial and they give you their name. Why do they do that? Because they know that if you have their full name, there's a possibility that you can work on them. Where did that come from? Because ultimately we understand is that you have a person's picture, you have a person's name, you have a person's essence. You can do magic on them. Now, and I'm just saying that this is being real. That's evil magic, but it can be done. So my question is this: is that if your parents taught you this as a spiritual folklore, then where's Jesus in that?
Yeah.
So so what I'm not saying that to say anything against whatever, because that word occult, only thing that word occult means is secret. That's all occult means. People think, it means spooky. It means hidden, but that's like, your friendly neighborhood doctor, your lawyer, and even your pastor can be practicing these sciences, and they're not going to let you know it, because that is what it means to be hidden. They're not going to tell you secrets. Like, I'm pretty sure, my sister, you have certain secrets in your family that you teach your children. Don't go out and tell anybody these secrets about our family. And that's the same thing. It's the only thing that means is hidden. It means secret. And to be more specific, it's your hidden powers that are within you. Every force within nature lies within inside of yourself. And people don't get that. So, and that's what Jesus was talking about when he got up on that boat and said, "Peace, be still." And what he was saying to us is, and this is something totally different. I'm gonna tell you why. This is what gets me. You know, they take the Bible all the time and put it in the movies, but people don't know it's the Bible. You know, so when all your emotions out of control and everything like that, that's your alchemy. You need your alchemy in control. So when you come to someone like myself that teach you how to put these elements in control, so that now you can be able to master your universe, so you can be able to create prosperity, success, love, whatever you want in your life. Oh, now I'm the one who's evil. But a lot of times what happens is this. Because within a lot of religions, they teach this stuff to be evil, so that if you ever encounter it intellectually, you begin to think, well, they told me against this. And there's something interesting about this, by the way. Isn't it interesting that everything that is occultic, they either put a skeleton on it or they put some crossbones on it, like poison? Isn't it interesting?
Okay, but you know what? In your little video, you got skulls in there.
Yes. But and that's my point. Absolutely. What they did was they took, so that the masses would not get it. They put the skulls and the crossbones and all that on there so that people would run from it.
Oh, okay. Because they were because they didn't want everybody having.
So if you're practicing something, you don't want everyone to know what you're practicing. Then quite naturally, you're gonna put that's skull. Crossbones, that's poison, it's bad for you. Yeah, you're gonna say that if you're the one that's practicing it.
Well, you don't want all that power in the wrong hands.
Absolutely. You know? I want to say something that's not controversial, it's the truth. You got to think about it like this. Well, if you think that there's only a certain amount of limited wealth in the universe, and only you feel that certain people should control it, then how would you do that? Well, the first thing you have to do is convince some people that you're a god. And then the next thing you have to do is be able to convince the other people that, well, you don't have to worry about this life because you're going to get your reward in heaven. So now if you think about it, that's 70% of the people that you don't have to even worry about. So the 30% elite can be able to pass things off the way you want to themselves, because they only got the 70% convinced that when I go to heaven, I'm going to get my reward. That's not what the Bible says, by the way, but that's the way they put it. Like there's a special people who have a certain type of gift or have a certain power, or because you were born under a certain sign or born in a certain race that you have magical powers. That is crazy. And because of that, that's why you got so many people who are walking the street who homeless. And by the way, can I say this? We do not have a poverty problem in America. We do not have a drug problem in America. What we have is a low self-esteem problem in America. We have a low spirituality problem in America. Because if you understand that God is in you, and God is in you, then you don't have to have the drugs. And you need someone to be able to develop that principle inside of you.
Do you see what
if you don't, do
you see what I put in there?
I see what you're saying. And I want to. Can I say something else about this while we on this?
Go for it.
I want you to get this.
You want me to get it?
No. I'm talking about our radio land.
Your radio land? Okay.
Or whoever. Your YouTube land.
YouTube, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I want to say this to you. If you, in your church, think about it. All the famous, all the rich people that are out there that's in Hollywood, think about what they might teach in their church, in their synagogue, in their convent. And I want to say this to you. If you're going to your neighborhood convent and you never seen anybody rich or famous come into your convent, you need to ask yourself a question. Because obviously they're teaching something in Hollywood Baptist Church that they're not teaching in your church. And you got to think about it this way too.
Yeah, but hold on. A lot of people are saying that's because they're drinking blood of babies and it's all sex trafficking and evil magic and worshiping the devil and all that kind of stuff. All those things.
Well, I'm gonna say this to you. First of all, that's player hating. I'm gonna say what I mean by this, because
I'm not saying that. I'm just.
I know. But I'm gonna tell you who would say that.
Okay.
Anybody you say who drunk blood or whatever like that to get it because and you think they did it because of the shortcut, I'm gonna say it to you like this: they still had to have talent, they still have to work, whatever. What you're really doing is you're devaluing the God principle inside of them, and you're devouring the God principle inside of yourself. Because ultimately, because anything that a human being can do, you can do too, and you don't need nobody else's blood to do it. You can do it on your own. And ultimately, I'm not saying that because if you get it the right way and understand Jesus' blood, I'm going to say it that way, that can elevate you and empower you. But guess what? Even with that, you got at the final analysis, you have to be able to look and you have to be able to say, listen, am I going to do it or am I not going to do it? Am I going to work or I'm not going to work? Am I going to have a work ethic or I'm not going to have a work ethic? So you devalue that person when you say, oh, well, you know what? They don't have any talent. They don't have whatever. All they did is they just drank somebody's blood, and that's the reason why they did whatever. Because what you're really saying is that you don't want to work that hard. So that way, so you're going to say, well, okay, it can't be that easy because I'm just sitting here worshiping Jesus. But what are you doing in the name of Jesus when you're worshiping him? Some people out there working 18-hour days, doing different things like that in order to become who they got to become. And what are you doing? I'm not saying that to say you per se, but I am saying that we give you the tools so you can be empowered so that you can be able to empower yourself. I'm going to tell you, once you feel the power of yourself being in God, because remember something, that we were taught that we are the co-creators. God did not come and create dogs and cats and different things like that. God gave us we were made in God's mental image so that we can create our own universe. A lion cannot go and tonight and visualize and see a rack of lamb just sitting there. He don't have to run it down or whatever, and visualize and see it, and then he goes out into the jungle and see that lion sitting there. The only people that could be able to do that is human beings. And because we don't not use that as co-creators, we're wasting our divine destiny that God has given us. I'm done preaching. I'm having an identity crisis.
You know what? I was wondering when you were like so calm in the beginning. I was like, I wonder how long is it going to take before he starts preaching.
I have an identity crisis today. I don't know if I'm a preacher. I don't know if I'm a preacher today or I'm a voodoo priest today.
And you know what? The many times that I've talked to you, it seems like you're more of a preacher. Like it just kind of happens. Look, this has been an amazing conversation, and hopefully this has answered some questions, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions. So please post your questions because we will be doing another show. And I would really like to bring some of those questions to you or to him or, to my lovely friend here. And feel free to ask those questions because those are the things that we're going to be answering in the next video. So I'm gonna leave this video off here with some nice little clips that he did that are so much fun. Here we go.
Is there any wonder that the gangster is a favorite role model of our children? And let's face it, even us, we think the fact that if you possess money, you must have done something evil to get it. You must have some evil ritual. You must have did this, that, and the other. And trust me, even in the movies, what do they show you in the movies? The person who is rich, they had to sell their soul, or they could not get it themselves through self-empowerment. They had to steal someone else's power in order to be able to get money. He's God's pimp or the devil's hoe. And I'm saying this not in a negative way because, because guess what? God owns all real estate. So if you're going to be an owner, you're going to be like God. If you're going to be the hoe, that means you're going through your life getting kicked, your butt getting kicked all the time by the devil because you don't want to know. One of my Christian folk called me up. And she told me that I'm going to suffer the way my Lord and Master Jesus suffered. And she thought she was going to offend me. You know what I told her? I said, well, you need to send me your money so you can keep on suffering by law of attraction because I don't know what you need him for because you're going to suffer anyway. Jesus did not come for you to suffer. He came for you to live life and live life more abundantly. And that don't mean just spiritual abundance. Material abundance is just the fruits of the way we think your spiritual abundance. But the reason why a lot of us cannot do this is because we're spiritually broke. Tell you something, money does grow on trees. It grows on astral trees. When you know the truth, and when you awaken to yourself to be God or God, so you understand how to create, guess what? You're going to realize that there's no evil in self-empowerment. If you understand where the principles came from, and by the way, voodoo is just the second cousin of Egypt. In Egypt, they call it Heku. Heku. That was what the magical system was called, not Hekut. I ain't gonna go into that like that. But Heku is what they practiced in Egypt to empower themselves with the power of that particular god or goddess. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now Egypt, where they're practicing all this magic and all this kind of stuff, they came out of Egypt. Now watch this. In the place where it's supposed to be evil, the chosen people go and Moses had to validate himself by beating the baddest magicians on the planet. He takes his staff, he does his magic, he put his staff down, and all of a sudden it turns into a snake. Pharaoh looked at him and laughed and said, my magician can do the same thing. But because his snake ate up the other snake, his people, the chosen people, their magic is more powerful than anybody else's magic. And that's why Pharaoh said, let my people go. Don't get it twisted. That's why I say I have no problem with the Bible, because the principles are the principles no matter what. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater because people did certain evil things in the name of the master adept, Jesus. I still know my Bible. Acts 7:22 said that Moses was initiated into the Egyptian mystery system. Why would they always try to program you and tell you that voodoo is evil? They'll tell you that it's evil, they'll program it to you. I'm going to tell you what they will do. They'll program it to you so when you do encounter the truth, you've been taught to deny the truth. There's a reason why we are broke. We have a broke consciousness. In Haiti, they are spiritually rich, but materialistically bankrupt. In America, we're spiritually bankrupt, but materialistically poor. I think I got that wrong, but y'all know what I'm saying. In America, we ride around our Escalades and our Rolls Royces, whatever we have, but when it comes down to being spiritual, we're spiritually bankrupt. So when you go out there and you say you suffering for your Lord and Master, Jesus Christ, and I'm going to tell you like this, and I'm bad enough to tell you, then what you need him for? Even he came in for spiritual power, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have power. Don't let them tell you that if you getting your behind kicked by all kind of witchcraft, all kind of black magic, don't be brainwashed and fuel and fool and say, well, this is the way my Lord and Master wanted me to suffer. No, somebody else will put that little bit on you for you to suffer. And they're going to keep on doing it until you learn and you begin to defend yourself spiritually so that you won't be able, until they won't be able to do that to you again. If you go into the African-based religion and you wear all white, we know what all white means. You've been initiated. You've gone through certain things. So I'm not going into all of it, but they all have their different secrets and codes that they acknowledge who and what, and they do it all out in the open.